is the header bidding process. Kind of break it down a little bit and see how it interplays with everything. So this is going to be mainly an overview. Just going to kind of like run through some slides, explain how it works, and then at the end of this, anything you guys want to know more about or want to dive deeper into, we can just look at it for real, like on a live example. So yeah, we'll just get started here. First, and sorry, I'm not the best slide person, but the foundation, everything's built on how DFP works, right? So, when we call on a page, everything we do works around DFP. So you see, you have the GPT library always needs to be called in this first bit of script here. Then you'll have the slots that need to be defined. So you're just telling Google like what this slot is. You're not calling it to display yet, right? And so that's the key here for enable services. This makes the request to go out to DFP. Why is this important for us? Because that request is where we add any kind of like targeting parameters or any kind of additional information. So we want to save that for later. And then in the body of the page, Google will, when you call display, and I got this little, well, when you call display, that's when the ad actually fires. But the request happens before that. So now with that in mind, let's look at the beginning of how header bidding started out. So back in the day, every bidder had their own like API library that you could call directly, and you could just put code on page. You'd have to deal, a lot of them didn't do async properly. A lot of them would like mess up content on the page. They had to set their own timeouts. It was not very fun. I used to freelance in this world and do that, and it was not very fun. But the problem was it really did increase revenue by a lot. So it was pretty, it was worthwhile for people to pay freelance developers to do this stuff. So that's where everything started out. And then enter in pre-bid. What pre-bid was a kind of a collection of ad tech developers who were like, this is silly, why are we doing it this way? So what they did is they kind of built a open source framework that let you structure a bid, deal with a bunch of different bid responses at once, and kind of translate what everybody was asking for as far as like their bid request, bid response. Then it made it play nicely with Google's stack that we saw earlier. So you can see here there's a kind of little JSON blob that has all your different bidders. It has the different parameters that they might need. So, I mean, I didn't really get too specific here, but, OpenX might say, we need you to send us this. AppNexus needs you to send us this, right? And so what this whole framework does is make this a lot easier to handle. And then you see we got a couple of functions in here on the right. I don't know if you guys can see you should be able to see my arrow. We got a couple functions in here on the right that handle all the request making. And then we see kind of sets the targeting. This would be putting those query params that we talked about a little bit ago. We're going to get into those more, so if you don't know yet, don't worry. Then this sets the ad server. So this is a pre-bid. This is the next step up. So then the next stage up from this, we enter the guru. So what PubGuru does, kind of does for pre-bid what pre-bid did for header bidding API requests. So it's set up to handle many, many websites. It's set up to handle many networks. It can interact with other platforms like Google Analytics, ad network reporting platforms. It has a bunch of logging features that let us track performance, impression drop, improvements. We have other things in the pipeline like the AdX HD dynamic floors, config test, a bunch of other stuff. But we'll get into those later on. For now, we want to look at the header bidding system and how that all works together. So first part of the whole process, you sit down at the page, you call up your content, and the call to Google goes out. But before that, we need to make a bid request and a bid response to all these bidders, right? So you can see it's pretty self-explanatory. So first we're going to look at the bid request part. So the bid request takes the JSON blob that we looked at earlier, but what PubGuru does is it upgrades this to an interface, right? So we have a UI that lets non-tech people or other team members implement what parameters need to go out, what bidder you want to attach to, any one ad unit here, and then also, reserve pricing, any kind of extra stuff. And so what will happen is when you go from the page, we have the page here, the page calls the configurator, PubGuru tool, then PubGuru calls the bidders, and the bidders return a bid response. So that's this nice bid response we're looking at right here. Okay, so let's check out this bid response. So it's basically just an object nested a bunch of other objects with responses. And so you can see this is a live page here. It had Rubicon, Rhythm1, AppNexus, Sovereign, and Kamuna all returned in a nice object that we can iterate through, we can pull stats from. And as you can see here, we have some important information that comes back on this bid response. We have who the bidder was, the height, width, status message, an ad ID, and then you also see when you open up the actual bid response, you can see the CPM, creative ID, some other information. So the things that we really care about from this bid response is the CPM, the bidder, the ad ID, the sizes, and then also the config, right? So this just tells us these three here, ad ID, bidder, PB, are all actually part of the pre-bid library. So any site who's using pre-bid, any site who's using M2HB, PubGuru, they're all going to kind of conform to these standards. So now with this bid response, it needs to go out in the next stage to DFP. And so this is the bid response from to DFP. We have all of our information, we have our object, and then the network request goes out. You can see from the request, you have the query string parameters, you have your bidder, which is Reteo in this sense, you have your ad ID. The ad ID is important for the creative, right? So then the PB is the price, and so the price is important for which line item fires. And I think we have that here. Yeah, the price is important in DFP for which line item fires. And then whenever you know the line item fires, it'll reference that ad ID that came through here. Right there. And then it'll give you the correct creative, and the creative returns to the page. And so, I mean, that's about the whole system, right? You sit down at the page, you have PubGuru that makes the ad requests, sets up everything correctly, and then you have the bid response that comes back to the page, and then that is used into that's injected into the DFP's library, or their whole stack. It goes out to the line items with the targeting. The targeting for price sets which line items go, and then the ad ID. Once you have a winner, the ad ID returns your creative. So I mean, that's about all for the slides. I wasn't sure if you guys wanted to look at something in the wild. So you guys have anything you want to look at specifically? You guys can put in the chat too if you want. All right, cool.
How those here bidding, how do you know which ad you need to render in the page?
Oh, so that's part of the code that goes out. So let's just take a look at this stuff in real life. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so yeah, to answer your question, Claudio, you'll have this ad ID here, right? And then that's part of the call to DFP. So if we look in the network requests, we go to DFP. We got to reload the page because we missed the request. All right, so we have one. So anyway, there's going to be an ad ID for every single ad unit. So you see, like, we have all these requests go out. These are all for different ad units. We can see in this one. Wait, we might have to use a different page. For some reason, that one messed up. Right, so we have this ad ID here for this ad unit. So that'll be in the call. Anyway, yeah, let's look at the. Let's look at the inside of DFP and see how the creatives work. Can you guys see this all right? Is this zoomed in enough? So, to answer your question, Claudio, when we were looking at these network calls and you catch the ad ID number, the ad unit is also passed in the parameter. So DFP will target the price, but it'll also target the ad unit. And so the line item that we just looked at here, well, you can't really open it, but yeah, that line item will target that call, and then that line item will call this creative, and this creative then is set to pattern match whatever's next to M2 ad ID. So it'll just parse through that query string and pull out whatever's next to ad ID. And this is just, I don't know if this is like macros everybody uses, but this is what Google does for their pattern matching here. So if you wanted the creative to parse, you can make it parse whatever you want. But yeah. You guys got any other questions? I know it's pretty short and sweet. I just wanted to give an overview, kind of see where people wanted to know more about. In the next trainings, we were going to look at going over config tests as a tool. So we got a lot going on in there. And then next time, we're going to go over PubGuru and that entire platform and how that all works. So if you guys want to look at anything or have any questions, feel free to share here. But otherwise, I know everyone's very busy. I don't want to take up too much time.
Now, guys, did you get what you needed out of that? If not, the gym's available now, so speak up.
Is the slide deck available somewhere?
Yeah, I'll post it in the training channel. You can check it out. Yeah, I didn't want to kind of stand and talk like, sometimes it helps just to take a look at this stuff, play around with it. If you guys want, I'll just put a couple example pages here, and I'll do some, you guys know, like open the console and all that jazz, right? You just open the console up, you go to the network requests. Reload the page, and then just filter the network calls for, if you want to see like what's happening with M2HB, just type in M2D, that's the name of our URL, m2d.m2. You can click there and you can check out the network request. And then if you also want, you just type in DFP, you should be able to see all the ad units and all their requests and how that all goes out. But as you can see, everything's happening here on one page. So, yeah.
Yeah, that works. All right then, Jim. Cool. Apparently they will have a great understanding now, so.
Yeah. And Jim, I have the training recorded as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah, reach me anytime with this, and if there's like something you want to know more about, if you saw and you're like, oh, why didn't we go into that further? Let me know. We'll put together a presentation.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate your help.
All right.
Bye,
have a good one, guys. See ya.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Cheers, Jim. See ya.
Yep.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep. Sure thing. See ya.